very good evening and welcome to Biz First in Focus. Joining us this evening in our studios is none other than Professor Sirmal Abe-Ratna. He's a professor of economics from the Colombo University. A very good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
Very good evening to you.
So, sir, the current the question that we're here to discuss today is the economic status of our country. Now, we here at Biz in Focus have been discussing this issue for quite some time. We would like to take your initial analysis of the economic situation in the country right now.
We know that now there are certain confusing situations politically, but even before all these things began, and there were some economic reports came up in the particularly one from the World Bank, and there are some other economic discussions as well. And accordingly, South Asia is the fastest growing region in the world now. It's not East Asia or China, it's South Asia now. But unfortunately, we know South Asia, when we say South Asia,
Sri Lanka is a part of
region.
South Asia.
It's our region, yes. Sri Lanka is very much part of it, and people used to say that in certain many respects, we are the highest in South Asia. And of course,
tallest, the Delum colony is the tallest but that was in Southeast Asia.
India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, so Afghanistan, these are the countries in South Asia. So, everybody, I think we are surprised and we are happy to hear that South Asia is the fastest growing region in the world today. But we are very sad to hear that according to this economy forecasting, Sri Lanka is not part of that. And this forecast, economic forecast came before we started even this
political crisis.
Political situation, yes, even before that, about a month ago. And accordingly, the only country which is performing worse than Sri Lanka
in South Asia
is Afghanistan. And obviously, we know why Afghanistan is performing like that, because it is in a war situation. So, Sri Lanka is higher than only to Afghanistan. So, how sad it is, and this is the current situation. And suddenly then we are now stuck with all these political issues, and then you can imagine
the impact that it will have.
Yeah, the impact that it's going to have.
So, you brought the conversation to a very interesting point, which leads on to my next question. How much of an impact will this political situation have on the economy of Sri Lanka?
Yeah, I would take the usual economic indicators that economists and policymakers and we talk about. The growth rate is number one, although it is not that much relevant or that much discussed among the general public. In fact, general public feel it in different ways. They feel it in terms of their hardship. And economic growth, we supposed to be growing around 10%, 8% per annum. But actually what has happened is now Sri Lankan growth rates have slowed down tremendously over the last 5-6 years, and we had the 8%, around 8% growth rate in 2010, 11, 12. But now it has come down. Obviously, it was supposed to be coming down, and then now it is around 3%, and we are not moving even beyond 4% this year as well. That's my understanding. So, which means actually we are performing much below our potentials, so that it is translated into people's economic affairs, daily economic affairs. Then we should understand that it will have economic hardship for them, and then slow growing incomes and slow growing employments, and so this is the way that people should feel it. And then, because economic growth is the fundamentally important thing for all of those things, for higher incomes, for higher jobs, and then also for reducing poverty. In all these areas, it is economic growth, the number one, where we have now performing very slowly.
Okay, Professor, now you said that we are performing below our potential.
Yeah.
I believe one important thing that we must do is identify the reasons as to why we are performing below our potential. What are those reasons?
Well, we look at from economic growth, and then the origin as well as the destination. Okay. So, these 2 points, origin and destination. Destination has to be the global market, international market. Why is that? Because the international market gives us unlimited market access. So, there is no limit, because the size of the market will limit the expansion of our production activities, our
Whatever
industries, our
business
businesses. Yes. So, they will be their performance will be limited by the size of the market. So, if we are focusing on the global market, you can imagine there is no limit. And that is one side, which means actually if I put it in different language, it means actually we should have export growth. That means we should
grow our exports.
Yeah, grow our export. If we are having growth rate without exports, we shouldn't believe in that, because that growth rate is not going to last long. And that's what happened 2010, 11, 12. Because even at that time we said that this is not going to last unless we translate into exports. Why we had higher growth rate during those times? Because of the domestic demand, because of the reconstruction, end of the war, reconstruction, construction activity and increased government spending, and all these things will produce temporary growth, not the lasting growth, and lasting growth depends on export growth. That is the destination side. And then we should look at, as I said, the origin side. Where does growth come from? And it should come from, there are few areas, but number one of them is investment. And we have been struggling over the years, even if we had finished our war, 30-year war. Since then, many people thought that we do not have that much investment because of the war. But war was over and still we do not have investment. That means there is something else much more important than the war for investment. So, why investment is not coming in? So, if you have a growth rate without investment, again you should not believe in that growth rate.
Where does that growth come from?
Yes, it comes from the government. It comes from the government.
So, you are saying the growth rate that we experienced in 2011, 10 and 12 was a government induced growth?
Yes, yes. Even now I think large part of our growth is fueled by construction industry and similar economic activities.
Infrastructure projects.
Yeah, which will not have export growth impact. They can of course support export growth, but they are not aimed at export market.
So, we are discussing about the current economic situation in the country with the professor from the University of Colombo. We will cross over to a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching BizFirst in Focus. Welcome back. You're watching BizFirst in Focus. We're in discussion with Professor Sirmala Abeyaratne from the University of Colombo. Professor, you were speaking about government-induced growth rate. And you said that this money doesn't come from investment, it comes from the government. But where does the government get this money from?
Taxes.
Taxes, is that the only source?
If the tax money is not enough, borrowings.
Borrowings.
And that means again taxes, because borrowing should be paid back with taxes in the future. Either you pay taxes today or you pay taxes tomorrow, either way.
So, it's inevitable. Professor, I'd like to ask you this question now. It is the policymakers of this country that shape the future of the country. Of course, economists and other professionals in the country can put forward their opinion, but at the end of the day, it's the policymakers that make the decisions. It's their decisions that shape the future of our country. Sri Lankan policymakers, Sri Lankan legislatures, how far do you see that their decisions, that the decisions that they've made, how far do you think they have thought in making those decisions, and how productive are those decisions?
I think you are asking a very good fundamental question. The reason is it relates to the vision, economic vision of our leaders. And if you look around the world and many different countries, you don't find that many leaders who have a good economic vision. You find only a couple of them, and they have made a big success, huge success. And in the same way, you can also you can ask, what is the economic vision of our leaders? and leaders cannot have a separate vision and nation cannot have a separate vision. Leaders' vision should be the nation's vision as well. So, that means actually if I look at, if I put it in a different language, and then we are talking about something like in another 10 years time or 25 years time, where should we be as a nation, this country, where is going to be? And so that first among everybody else, that is one of the qualities of a leader, among
to plan,
to have the ability to see that, visualize that, imagine and plan that vision, and then okay, in 20 years time our nation should be at this point, at this place, and then I should convince my nation with that economic vision, so that he or she convey that vision to the nation, and then he or she leads the nation to achieve that vision. So, that is how the vision is instrumental fundamentally to translate that into a mission, or mission means the formulation of
the practical plan.
Practical plan, yes, economic policies. That is how we make policies, and all the policies, no matter if they are tiny or big, and any kind of policy, they should fit into this big vision. And they are,
you can't have policies that contradict with the overall vision of the country.
You can't have that.
And how often can a country afford to change their policies?
Very difficult, and it's not easy to afford to change those policies.
But in Sri Lanka, it's a different story.
Sri Lanka, you have midnight policies changes, and when you get up tomorrow morning, you may have different policies, and they
are not have a different prime minister.
They are not actually guided by those economic visions and missions, and so they will have negative impact. Obviously, that's one of the important reasons why investors don't put money in this country, because they cannot see consistency and predictability in our policy making, and our policy making is not geared towards a particular economic goal or a vision.
And our country is marred with corruption. How far does corruption play a role in investor confidence in a country?
Yes, that is another area. Somebody can argue that okay, corruption is everywhere in different degrees. That's a different matter actually to my understanding, but it's better to have a corrupt free economy, because today the problem is actually anybody in the world, any corner of the world can have access to these international data reports which rank the countries in many different areas. So, there is corruption perception index also, and compiled by the Amnesty International, and according to this index, Sri Lanka is not in a good position, whereas in other cases as well.
And I am pretty sure the ground level situation is also privy to that. We all know the reality of our country.
Yeah, exactly. So, that the investors look at, okay, when I go to this country, how many people
will I have to bribe?
How many people I have to meet, and from the bottom to the top, and then they do not see the end. Actually, investors have told with me and why they don't want to invest in this country. So,
the procedures are so complex, and
that is also explained in one of the reports called Doing Business Index, and the procedures are so complex, and I cannot understand why when an investor comes to a country, why should
why
should that investor see a politician? It's a very strange situation in the country. They don't have to see politicians. Politicians should be doing things at higher levels and setting the policies and setting the groundwork and setting everything, but they don't have to play with at ground level with investors, consumers and like that. But in this country, I think we are a little far away from that kind of.
So, investors are supposed to deal with the state sector employees.
Yes, public sector. The public sector has to be efficient enough to deal with that, and then they don't have to have big files and lot of papers, and then go in after everywhere, looking everywhere, the public sector officials getting their signatures, that office, this office. So, this makes things very complicated, and those complications are actually those are also estimated and simplified and then we have this ranking order of our business environment, which is called the ease of doing business or the difficulty of doing business, and Sri Lanka in fact not even in the half of the
not even
list.
in the top half.
Not even the top half.
Okay, so we are in discussion with a professor from the University of Colombo. He's a professor on economics. Of course, we're discussing about the economy of Sri Lanka. We discussed the problems that we face here in the Sri Lankan economy during the first two segments of this program. We will cross over to a short commercial break. On the other side of it, we will discuss on the way that Sri Lanka should take to move forward. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Biz First in Focus. Professor, coming back to our discussion, what is the way that Sri Lanka can take forward? Now, we've seen in the past Sri Lankan policymakers, when they come in front of the media and when the media questions them on what policy they would like to adopt, they keep on dodging questions. They keep on saying, you first give us the power and then we will show you what you can do. Have faith in us. But then we've tried that for 60, maybe even more years. And look where that has gotten us.
Yeah.
So what exactly can we do to address this? I know this is a bit of a broad question, but I'd like to see your approach.
Yes. I think we should have that vision, that visionary leader for the country. And then I like to see a visionary leader. I don't mind whether he comes from SLPP or SLFP or UMP or JVP. I like to see that vision put forward by any leader of this country, and then that leader should have the capacity and capability to convey to the people and then to lead the people, lead the nation to achieve that vision. If we are following that path, I don't think we will have those overnight changes in policies and changes in prices here and there, moving things, taxes here and there, and because everything, tiny things, big things, all these things are little pieces, big pieces of the same puzzle, that how we achieve the long term vision, and that's our policy formulation should be geared toward that. If it is the case, actually most of the problems that we discuss about these about doing business index, corruption index, there is no place for those things also in that vision, because leader will take definitely the necessary steps to remove anything that is affecting the achievement of his vision.
Also, Professor, now the budget for the financial year 2019 was due to be presented this month. But of course, given the current political situation, it's uncertain as to when this budget will be presented. But in this sort of a situation, what exactly is the procedure? Is the government going to function without a budget for the next year?
I think our public sector officials, those who are responsible for managing public finances, the Ministry of Finance, they might be having a plan for that. So, to a certain extent, they can continue with the existing finances, taxes are collected and expenditure will be made, and so, but finally, they can't go too long with that, and that has to be presented. So, I believe that,
because at the end of the day, Parliament is in control of the finances of the country.
That's right.
And so as of right now,
so
unless amended, we don't have a Parliament right now.
There is a limit to do all those things, and then other before we come to those limitations, and actually we should have a Parliament.
Professor, I'd also like to ask you, with the current political uncertainty in the country, how long will the country take to recover from this situation?
Well, unlike the political things will recover very quickly.
And then they can go back down the same road as fast as they recovered.
Right, yes, that's the way it happens, and there might be elections, or there might be Parliament, or whichever the way there might be, within few weeks or few months there will be political recovery, but its economic consequences we will have to carry on. The reason is, if you look little bit back after the end of the war and the period that we spent up to now, and then still the investors are adopting wait and see policy. You can see that now. That's why our investment has not been growing.
From 2009 to 2018, that's about
Close
how
to
many years?
Close to 10 years.
Close to 10 years.
Yes, getting close to 10 years, and they have been still waiting. And while all the other countries in our neighborhood, they are getting more and more investments, and Sri Lanka is struggling, and we have very dismal performance in investment area. So, which means actually in the future also it is not easy to recover from economic point of view. In other words, it means actually it is not easy to win the investor confidence.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, because we have to show that okay, the country is now normal, and we have predictable policies, and we have consistent policies, so that you can come and invest, and for the next 25 years, next 50 years, and we will, whichever the government comes to power, we will go along this path, and we have to show that consistency and predictability in our policy making. So, it's not that easy.
Professor, I'd like to ask you the final question as we're coming close to the end of our program. In your point of view, do you see any redemption for the economy of Sri Lanka?
I like to be very optimistic, actually, realistic as well as optimistic, and I know that Sri Lanka has huge potentials in this country, and it requires only a leadership.
That's what we're lacking right now.
Yeah, leadership, and leaders who can take the decisions, and then who can adopt the policy reforms that is required to achieve that big economic vision, big economic goal. And then when we have that, I don't think we need to worry that much about our future. Sri Lanka will move very fast, and faster than all the other countries in the region.
Thank you very much, Professor Sirimal Aberatne. He is, of course, a professor of economics at the Columbia University. Thank you very much, sir, for taking time off your busy schedule and joining us on Newsfirst in Focus. Thank you very much to our viewers out there for watching. Take care and God bless. We will see you again next week.